The UAE warned Israel and President Trump that annexing parts of biblical Judea and Samaria, also known as the West Bank, would threaten the Abraham Accords, signed nearly 5 years ago between Israel and Arab states. Meanwhile, Houthis continue firing missiles toward Israel, and Israelis protest to free the hostages. Here's the latest on all these and other stories.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has reportedly removed discussions of annexing much of the biblical lands of Judea and Samaria off the agenda today, according to the Jerusalem Post. That move comes after a warning from the United Arab Emirates that annexing the biblical heartland, known as the West Bank, could endanger the Abraham Accords, saying the action would be a red line. The move to annex the area came in response to Western nations' decision to recognize a Palestinian state at the UN this month. Regional and local council heads from Judea and Samaria, along with Finance Minister Smotrich, laid out a plan for sovereignty over more than 80% of Judea and Samaria, leaving a number of Palestinian city-states in the West Bank.
Beyond the historical, biblical, and moral right of the Jewish people to their land, sovereignty has a paramount security role to prevent the establishment of an Arab state in the heart of our homeland.
U.S. Ambassador to Israel Mike Huckabee told CBN News that he and President Trump have not discussed the issue.
Generally, the president's attitude has been, not just with Israel, but with countries around the world, you're a sovereign nation. You make your own decisions.
Meanwhile, Houthi rebels continue to launch missiles at Israel, including one with a deadly cluster warhead. They were all intercepted before reaching Israeli territory. In Gaza, Israel Defense Forces Chief of Staff Lieutenant General Eyal Zamir says Israel is expanding combat and intensifying its operations against Hamas in order to achieve the objectives of returning the hostages and defeating Hamas. In a post on Truth Social, President Trump warned Hamas on Wednesday to set the hostages free. Tell Hamas to immediately give back all 20 hostages, not 2 or 5 or 7, and things will change rapidly. It will end. In Jerusalem and elsewhere in Israel, protests to free the hostages turned violent. Demonstrators set fire to a car near the prime minister's residence. Netanyahu says the war could end immediately if Hamas agrees to the conditions set by the Security Cabinet, including the release of all 48 hostages, Hamas disarmed, and Israel has security control in the Gaza Strip. Julie Stahl, CBN News, Jerusalem.
The IDF says it now controls up to 40% of Gaza City, even before its main offensive. The battle is key to destroying the last remaining Hamas stronghold in the Gaza Strip. All this as a pivotal United Nations meeting is about to take place. CBN's Paul Petit sat down with Mike Huckabee, United States Ambassador to Israel.
Ambassador Huckabee, appreciate you taking the time to speak with us.
Thank you, Paul. Great to have you in Israel.
So as we speak, IDF soldiers are continuing their momentum moving into Gaza. We haven't heard any response regarding the Hamas offer to free the hostages. Is that the right move right now? And if so, why?
It's what the president has been pushing for and saying. It's what Israel has been pushing for. Israel has tried it soft. Now they're trying it hard. It's a tough call. But I don't know that they have much of a choice, because Hamas will walk up to the table and pretend they're going to make some type of deal that would let the hostages go, and then they always walk away. And then they add new conditions. I think people have to understand the reason this has gone on like it has, as long as it has, with as much suffering as it has, it's not because of Israel, it's because of Hamas.
Do you think perhaps Hamas is buying time, knowing that later this month the UN General Assembly will meet? Some countries, UK, as well as Belgium and Canada, will, if they follow through on it, declare a sovereign state?
It could be. I think without a doubt, when these European countries started saying they were going to unilaterally declare a Palestinian state, Hamas walked away from all the negotiations that had been going on. And of course they would. They wanted a Palestinian state. Now they might get one for free.
How does that muddy the waters then, if in fact they're declared a sovereign state? Now there's a quote-unquote invasion of a sovereign state. What does that look like? How do you work through that?
It was the most insane thing when the European countries did this. First of all, it's a violation of the Oslo Accords. So that's a problem. They can't declare a Palestinian state. They just can't do that. And they also, they haven't defined where the boundaries are, who would lead it, how it would all work out. So it is an exercise in futility, I think largely designed to give Emmanuel Macron some sense of relevancy, because his approval ratings in France are somewhere just south of an STD or the whooping cough.
The President said that Israel has, quote, is not winning the war of public opinion. There's a PR problem going on now in the United States, well, across the globe. How does that get countered? How do you fix that?
It's a challenge for Israel because the monolithic media is so against them. It's partly because the leftist slant of the media, but a lot of it is because Hamas, to their credit, and I don't want to give them any credit that they don't deserve, but in this case, they've controlled the message machine pretty well. Now, they've got a lot of people complicit with them. United Nations, who puts out whatever they say through the, quote, Gaza Health Ministry, that's Hamas.
If you were the PR consultant for them, what would you tell them?
I tell them to get a bunch of social media influencers, because the real problem is with Generation Z. That's where they're losing ground, and that then affects as it bubbles up to generations above. I don't think the messaging of it all has probably been their highest priority, but it's going to have to be, because they need to get the truth out and counteract some of the most vicious lies that have ever been told against a government.
You know, most people view this as a battle between Hamas and Israel. There's something much deeper going on. How do you see it?
Yeah, I think that if you really look at this stepping back, you don't see just a geopolitical conflict. What you see is a spiritual conflict. This is a battle of the ages. This is not horizontal. It's not left, right, liberal, conservative. This is a vertical battle. It's heaven versus hell. It's good versus evil. People need to see it in that context or they'll miss the whole thing. Where does that come from? It doesn't come just from socio-political or economic pressures. It comes from an evil that originates from the most demonic forces that have ever been unleashed on this earth. And that's why I feel like particularly Christian believers in the United States and across the world need to recognize it. You got to pick a side. This is not something where it's, well, this side, but this side. Pick a side, because you can't straddle this fence. You just can't.